I'm back with the Prokofiev Sixth Sonata, first movement. For those of you counting, it's measure 5 and 6. I'm telling my body to land a little bit on the quarter note of the second mode. By doing so, I remind myself it's a quarter note. So. Particularly reminding myself in the left hand that he has slurs, two note slurs, and non-legato for the others. He hasn't written non-legato, he simply has not extended the slur. And because, unlike the right hand, when I'm playing a bunch of thumbs anyway, which automatically creates a non-legato, I could very easily do that in the left hand. So I have to be sure that the articulation of the right is what the left hand mirrors. Left hand start off with the outer voice, the upper voice of the right hand mirrors the left hand. It doesn't stay that way. It doesn't even stay that way for the second statement, because the second time the right hand stays on G sharp, the left hand chooses to foray into areas unknown, G. So, but of the right hand, exactly, almost exactly. Almost exactly mirrored. So we have perfect fourths in both hands and all steps. Second time around, the left hand is playing a tritone, the right hand starts with a perfect fourth and joins in. Is responding to those fingering changes, the fourth finger. And you can see I'm not staring at the music or anything, I'm doing it by feel, which is just a reinforcement. Now, interestingly enough, I had chosen in a previous life, which is to say an hour ago or a few minutes ago, to follow here with the left hand playing 3 to 4 to 5, because there's a deliciousness to seeing this chromaticism here. However, the more recent discovery that my right hand interferes makes that not nearly as comfortable. On the other hand, the previous time, one primary reason for playing the fifth was because of where the right hand came from. So right now you've caught me in a quandary. I'm trying to work out this quandary online. So well, where it comes from makes that significantly less significant. Another issue. Right now my left hand is playing 1, 3, 4, 3. And maybe it likes, because it was just releasing from the G, from the keyboard on G, on third finger. Because it released on the third finger, might be to its advantage to then go to fourth finger. I'm thinking out loud without knowing what the answer will be yet. erase my third finger, go in favor of the fourth finger that I liked for when it was 2 measures before, and the leap made the fifth finger an obvious choice. But here, I had a reason why, a moment ago, why I was going to do it. I actually need to shift my attention to the left hand to find that fourth finger on C and to work my way into the keyboard there. That's okay. I want to shift my attention to the left hand, which gets more involved rhythmically, or at least rhythmically and motivically. It becomes certainly the lead voice there. Fourth. Good. Okay, and then we have this interesting arpeggio, which is a series of different chords. F sharp minor, G major, F sharp minor, G seventh, and A. And I experimented with going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with G7, and I decided, because of the placement of that way, way high up A, and because it's an accent, and it's the beginning of the return of the A theme, I really want that A to speak, and my hand actually feels a greater comfort going 1, 2, 3, 5, 3. And for those of you who tend to feel that that's weak, it's not that I'm crossing my third finger over the fifth. I'm just extending my arm as I progress further and further to the right. The angle changes more and more, and especially because I have this short finger on A, it's almost as if the third finger is just further in rather than way to the right and toward my body. I don't feel that at all. I'm able to go very comfortably toward that fifth finger, and it gives me just the right kind of reassuring sonority that I want at the top of something like that. So somebody has bothered to print in a fingering here, whether it be Prokofiev or an editor, Squizzy and Hawks, which is the edition I'm currently using. Copyright 1985, so it's a little more recent than the international edition that I used to learn Prokofiev sonatas from. Okay, that works. Now the left hand, by comparison, is jumping around. I discovered that jumping around probably needs at least as much attention as the continuous, if chord-changing right hand. Because I always feel a little disoriented when there are a bunch of white notes in a row that require placement. Because I have this 5-1-y thing to D, and then 4-1-y thing to D, another. I'm going to D twice, but all from white notes. So 4-1, 5-1 maybe, and this diminished chord, back to A. And meanwhile, the right hand is agreeing with the left hand some of the time. Sharp minor, G major. Okay, while the right hand is back to F sharp minor, the left hand is stolidly staying in G major. So I have to make that relationship, I have to be conscious of it. There's nothing under the hand that would cause me to want to go from AD to GD an octave higher, other than that I still want to go to D, I guess. But there's nothing as easy or as seamless as a gesture that's a continuous and graceful gesture. So I need to know where I'm going. And then getting to that diminished chord requires consciousness. I wouldn't automatically think of that, especially not in the light of the G7th in the right hand. Whoops. Back to A. Okay. You notice this is a 4-beat arpeggio, but I'm only practicing 3 beats. Because that's particularly here. Here's the cutting edge of the difficulty for me. That shift. Not a problem. Shift top crossing my hand to thumb on F sharp, which is what's indicated in the score, and which I agree with. I don't need to go back to 2 here. It's a real waste of energy. Considering the amount of time I have, I just let my arm deliver my thumb to the F sharp. There we go. Almost. Not quite. So I can't be looking at all this or thinking all of it. So what I'm thinking about is the stuff I need. I need to identify that fifth in my left hand. It's a white note. So because I have rest, I don't have to look at it, but I do have to feel my way to it. I know I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Then I can look at these F sharp. Yep. Okay, I closed my eyes to see how close I was coming to the F sharp. I'm coming close, but it's obvious that I benefit from looking at the F sharp. Never got the tritone there. All right. That's a mixture of sensation and thought, and certainly where my attention goes, how I choreograph my attention. Yes. Okay, it's starting to click. Let me add. As often mystifies most of us, you just add one little element to something you've been drilling, and suddenly it feels completely unfamiliar because the context has changed. If I did this, actually, this is what I never did. This is the big issue, is that I didn't practice coming from the black note F sharp up to this G major. So that's a significant change. Requires an attitude. So that was my mistake. What I should have practiced, or what I could have practiced, let me phrase it more positively. I could have practiced with one more note. That note from the right hand. And that would have reinforced that connection with the preceding hand position. So that's what I'm going to do here. Of course, your mind just clouds over. You have no idea what you're doing, even when you're in the thick of something that was familiar a moment ago. So you back off and make sure you don't overwhelm your system, but you give yourself that mental breath, that sort of gathering time in your head to say, what now? What now? This, and this, and this. So every one of those little decisions felt as if I had a lot of time. Time slowed down for me because I wasn't panicked, I wasn't rushing. So, and here, I've got to remember this. You don't have to necessarily look, but I have to remember it. The moment I led with telling myself about this GD, it made me feel calmer and clearer. So, think this. Okay, another thing, and of course we develop all kinds of little strands that create confidence, that the right hand passes through this G major and then the left hand reinforces that G major. So where I just was in the right hand is where my left hand is going to go. And that thought seemed to help. that's starting to come. Now. Okay, that's all identical to what came before, except for the first note. So that's good to know. Whoa. So because I'm not playing the first one, I have to guard against being suckered into getting to C sharp when I need the C natural. So one of the ways to do that is to be well defined about how my arm rotates from this really far to the right turn back this way and puts my third finger on a white note. In other words, I want my choreography to tell me it's a C natural, not just my mind. So that even though it's not under my hand initially, my arm thinks it's inevitable that I have to go to this white note major third. Okay, I had written fourth finger, but now I know better. Stay on fifth for the C flat that happens right afterwards. Then go to fourth, because on the way down, fourth finger to B flat away really makes the hand tilt just right. So 5, 4, 4, 5, that's good. 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 5, yes. 5, 5, 4, 4, 5, excellent. Now we get into an imitative section. Oops. So the imitation happens not continuously. Left imitated by right, wait, fourth beat, left, right, left. Okay, so maybe I'll draw a little line indicating that the continuity of the rhythm on the second measure. So it's left to right, wait, left, left to right, left, wait. Then it changes. So it's left, left, right. Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce my understanding. This time, after the wait, it's the right hand that takes over. So it's left, right, right. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a three-measure phrase, but we go back to this. Well, what happened to the continuous one? In the second measure of the first time around, there was that 1, 2, 3 imitation. And we go back to it, it just recurs, and then back to this upper one. Okay, and I see on the page that the 11, 12, 13, 14, measure 14, this happens to be the top of my second page, 14, 15, 16, 17. 14 and 17 are identical. That's good to know. Another thing is that I find it necessary when there's mixtures of chromatics and non-chromatics, what I call hybrid scales. And you have to keep track of when it's chromatic and when it's not. And at the top, the descent is all whole step, half step, whole step, half step, recurring, and it's all on one set of keys as well. Now that we move to different keys, here's a half step followed by a whole step. And of course, the left and right are just imitating one another. So a half step, whole step. And of course, I'm hyper aware of what those intervals feel like in my hand. Going to 3, 5 on white notes in the left hand, that tends to draw me out from the thumb where I feel the most inward. By comparison, my right hand feels as if it's moving more into the keys when it shortness of the song, and to make it feel more neutral. Okay, so when we turn over here and it goes to D, instead of half step, whole step, it's whole step, half step, which is the way. Whole step, half step, yeah, it's the way it began. The feel is different. The feel in the right hand is wonderfully different because I have two black notes in the middle of this, and that really optimizes the sense of well-being. The right hand starts off with a terrific fingering, shall I say, A flat C on 3 and 5. That's the optimal fingering for those two keys. Just, that's perfect. Same thing goes for 2 and 4 on the two black notes. They're longer fingers, they love to be slightly extended on the same colored note. So they feel very good. 1 and 3 on two white notes, not terrible. But I mean, it would be more ideal if it were A flat. So I turn my hand a little bit more to even out the lengths a bit. Okay. And the other thing that has to be noted is that the hands aren't playing the same notes. Here, now we go back. Half step, I should, for redundancy, right, half toll. And then it's a repeat instead of with the 3 in a row. And then back to here. Okay, let's figure out what the other voice is doing. An obvious melodic design. It's a descending scale. The only non-octave is the very first one at the beginning of this section. Now I'm playing this melody in the right hand, but because the hands are going to imitate one another, they're going to take turns playing it. So it's going to be right, left, right, right, left, right. And this caught my eye that I have a series of BDs, but then there's an extra octave leap in the right hand. And it does that later on too. And the reason for that, convenient. My right hand gets to stay in the same place. My left hand gets to leap around it. So rather than being in an interfering place, it's in a register that both makes it sound-wise better isolated and physically makes it a whole heck of a lot easier. So that's good. So let's see how this feels together. So, A. The continuous figuration, I think. Well, in this case, the melody, it seems as if he's filling in these half notes with those continuous motives. So in other words, when I have a half note at the beginning of this phrase, oh sorry, the ninth. Okay, so he says, play this with the right hand. But this is a half note. Well, this is a 20th century composer, so one could, if one wanted to make it clear, one could use the sostenuto pedal here. Preferably after letting go of the left hand. That makes it awfully clear. Let me see. I guess it's an aesthetic choice. Do I want the accumulated sonority. Fancy pedaling. Okay, because the half note is in a different place, I have to be careful not to be suckered into pedaling consistently when it requires an inconsistency. Or the consistency requires me to react to the half note, not to where I am in the measure. Let me put it that way. So, pedal, pedal, am I right? Yes, I am right. So, what I don't want to do is put down the sostenuto too soon because it'll grab the wrong sonority. That's why it's so important for me to put it down after my left hand has cleared. So now I have that G singing. What happens if I just leave it? Definitely not, because then I keep the A. I gotta say, I rather like it. It's too bad because it's a little complicated, but sost. So that may take a bit of doing to get used to it. Fancy footwork. And you know, if I happen to be playing this on a piano without a sostenuto pedal, I'll have to shrug my shoulders. Yeah, so. Left hand, except for the first one. Well, here I'm finding myself grabbing hold of the pedal to get an accumulated sonority, especially up here, where the accumulation of sonority doesn't create too much cacophony. There's not the same number of harmonics clashing with one another. The question is, how much clarity do I want? Do I want the accumulated sense? Definitely not here. This is quite possible. I like it. Sostenuto, I'm going to do it here too. I do like it. Seems to be worth it. Again. I have to keep track of where I am in the scale. F. It's a white note, so it's just that much harder to find when I'm just feeling my way around. So on a newish piece, that's where my mind has to go. So F, yes, but then E too. That's another white note in the right hand. Slower, please. Pedal. F. Oh, I made life really hard for myself. E is very easy to play because it's in the left hand as well. So, 2 notes left. Yes! makes all the difference, because I have an octave, I'll go 5-1, and I'll go 4-2 in the right hand. 4-2, there I am. Notice I talk quite a lot to myself in this case. I'm guessing that were I not to have a camera in front of me, it wouldn't all be out loud, but there is nothing wrong with speaking out loud or talking to yourself, so long as you're a good listener. Okay, and I have to remind myself when I get back to this, what the valid relationships are, that it's a whole step, how it feels, because coming out to this white note and going into this black note, these are dramatically different. Half step to whole step to half step. That's not really the big issue. It's how those different key colors or the key topography, how different that feels. And it's quite dramatic. And in particular, I find that this turn to favor the third finger black note on D F sharp really makes a difference. If I come out on these white notes and move in on this black note, it really feels much better. I didn't do what I said, so 4-2, yes. Okay, it goes down an extra octave here. How nice. I think I should not pedal right here for a moment, because I'm hiding behind it. So I want to see what I'm doing in here. Oops. Down. So these are the same, an octave apart. Whoops, too many. Feel that left hand, feel the character of that left hand gesture. That's what I like. Okay, my right hand played all the right notes, but I'm not convinced by the fingering. I want something that tells me where I am. I could go 1-2. Okay, a little too simplistic, let's see. Untrustable. If I go 5-3 or 5-4, it sets up the bottom octave. It kind of announces to me that I'm going down there. 5-3 is maybe a little safer. 5-4 is a little more forward directed, so it's once I'm playing this all visually, in other words, once it's all memorized, one of the primary reasons why memory can be helpful in complex pieces, you can see where you are on the keyboard. Some of the time. I see. So, whoa. It's a white note, so it needs extra visual input. Probably not time to see that left hand, so I have to know where I'm going. In particular, that whole step, so let me remind myself. It's all white, going to a whole step, so that's it, that's right. Yeah. So I played the left hand by feel that time, and it felt much better. In other words, I trusted that the sensation would be there to help me out, so I wouldn't have to think about the notes that much. Or look. Besides, if I'm looking here, another thing I noticed, the hands are right beside one another. That's a useful positioning discovery. Let's see. it starts on G instead of F sharp. This is the original, now it's going to... I'm going to use the same fingering. Everything else seems alike, and I'm going to remind myself again to think about G major in my left hand. Think G major. That's it. So there I have it. And I need to grab this diminished chord. So okay, much of that stuck. Let me have to practice the fact that it's approached differently from the way it was first approached. That way. So if I came from here, it's right next door. This is so low, and it's doubly important that the articulation be clear, or it will just sound like mud. So I really want to toss my hand, my arm tosses my hand. So each position is quite unique. Okay, that's not great. Shortly know what I'm doing. Okay, reiteration. Okay. Good thing about that is it's just like the beginning, with the exception of this starting on the high A. A good starting spot. Oh, a good stopping spot, but also a good starting spot for next time.